Sound design. What is sound design? Well, do you ever listen to your favorite songs and artists and wonder, how do they make these sounds? Well, I'm about to show you the very basics in Serum so you can start making the sounds you hear and bringing them to life. So let's get to it. Okay, so we're gonna cover some of the basics of the interface first. So if you click on Serum right here, you can control the zoom of how much everything is zoomed in, but typically I just keep it at default 100%. If you really want to get fancy, you can change the skin of it, the color, you can import skins, and then you can also hover over certain words if you don't know what something is, and it'll kind of tell you what it is, maybe a certain knob, and you get these little descriptions that pop up, which is super cool. So we also have our presets menu here. There's some that come with Serum, and there's some that I've downloaded. You also have your menu section here. Okay, so one thing to note about the undo function in Serum 1 is that it kind of sucks and doesn't really work. So if I were to just change the sound and then want to go back, Command Z, it doesn't work. But I have the same sound here in Serum 2. I will change the sound, and Command Z, it'll go back to the sound. Okay, so what is an oscillator? It is the core sound generator that produces and creates raw audio waveforms from sine waves, saw waves, or square waves. It defaults to just one oscillator and a saw wave here for Serum 1. Serum 2 has 3 oscillators. You can just turn on another oscillator here. I tend to go to analog, basic shapes, to now you can, if you adjust your wavetable position here, you can go scroll through all the different wavetables. Notice that the default oscillator here only gives you a saw wave, only one position. You can also change the octave of this specific wavetable here, and you can also mess with these. They mainly just mess with pitch and give you different tones and textures in that way. Okay, so the next section is your filter section here. You can flip through different basic filters like a low pass, high pass, and then a band. You can mess with cutoff, resonance, drive. This is your routing section, so when this is on, it's only affecting this A wavetable here. So you can turn on both A, B, so it affects both these wavetables. This will also route to these noise and sub. So the next sections are going to be our sub oscillator and noise oscillator. For the sub, you can flip between different wavetables for just your subtone, which is really cool. You can change the octave here and have control with your levels. If you have direct out on, this will bypass any effects that may be on, because sometimes you may not want that subtone to have these effects that you have or these other wavetables. And here's your noise oscillator, which gives you noise basically, and you can flip between different white noises. Okay, so a few more sections to understand the interface a bit. This is our modulation section, which basically allows you to modulate multiple parameters at once, and it's basically like a remote control for your sound. And then you have your envelope section here and your LFO section, which can give you different rhythms. Okay, next we have our effects tab, right next to the oscillators here. You can add some distortion, some chorus, delay, compressor, reverb, all that good stuff here. So for the matrix tab up here, this will allow you to route any modulation, and global will allow you to adjust settings as a whole to everything. So if you really don't like what you've been working on and you want to start over and go back to the defaults, you can just go to menu, Init preset right here, and it'll go back to the initial state. You can just load up another basic shapes or another kind of wavetable. You can open up your own preset here. So another cool feature is that you can literally drag any sample into a wavetable like that, kind of just create your own wavetable, make it a little more unique like that, and build off of a sound that way. So let's say you make that sound that you just created from the sample and you really like it. You hit a note. As soon as you let go, you'll get this option to drag out that note you just played. And so I could make a audio track here and just take that little corner, bam. Now you have this note and sound that you just made. Okay, so adding modulation to your sound is the fun part and what gives it the rhythm. So you can take this LFO and drag it to all kinds of things like the level or the cutoff or another level of your wavetable there. I'm just going to demonstrate one level here. So before adding any LFO or modulation, this is how it sounds, just a sustained sound. And so if we add the LFO to the level here, bring the level down in this blue line, if you kind of hover over, you can adjust this level. This is going to be the volume of your LFO. You can change the rate of it here. Okay, so what is FM? FM is taking one wavetable sound and bringing it into another. So this saw wave is now, if I bump this up, you can hear some of these harmonics now are going to be in this sine wave, and vice versa. If I want to do FM from B, which is, this is oscillator B, this one will turn off, I am going to bump this up, and it's pulling harmonics from this wavetable into this one. So you can really create some different sounds with just FMing. So to add more voicing to your wavetables, you can mess with the Unison and Detune. So if you bring a Unison all the way up, you pretty much can add different voicing to this wavetable here, and same with this one, which is really cool. And then Detune just pretty much will widen that Unison. So you can't really detune anything that with one Unison, but if you bring it up, then you can use your detune. So wide, not wide. Okay, so envelopes. With this, your envelope 1 is basically your volume shaper. Right now, it's going to give you this sustain sound. If you bring it down, you can get more plucky of a sound. And of course, you can add this and apply this to any parameter as well. So next thing is LFOs and the different modes. So when you have BPM on, it will sync to whatever BPM and kind of lock into the grid that you're doing. But if you have it off, the LFO is more free running, and it's more for experimental purposes that you do this for, like maybe effects or atmospheres or drones. This isn't a really good sound for that, but it will just be more free running. And similar thing when anchor is on and off. So this will keep things locked in the grid a little bit more when it is on, and when it's off, the note will have a little bit more of an expression and a more of a natural feel. Also, triplet and dot mode, these are just going to affect this rate here, and you can do triplet mode, you can do a dot mode, and it again is just a different kind of rate. So when trigger mode is on, the LFO restarts from the beginning every time a new note is played. And when you have it on envelope mode, it will play once through and not restart, like this. Mostly good for kicks, snares, or one-shots. So next we have our effects tab, and you can really get kind of intricate with this. You have distortion for some grittiness. You can mess with different modes here in your distortion settings. Chorus for some width. Compressor for some punch. You got reverb and delay for some space. Okay, so if you downloaded a preset and you want to import your own presets, you can go to menu, show Serum presets folder, go to your presets folder, and here's where all your folders are going to be. You can make a new folder or just drag in your preset into an existing folder like that, and then make sure you go back to menu, rescan folders so it can rescan it on your computer and it will show up in that folder. Okay, so let's say you have a sound you've tweaked or you built and you want to save it. You can go to the save icon here, name it something. You can either put it in a folder that's already existed or start a new folder. Save, and there you go. You can also search for a sound by going to this icon here and search, like, you know, ARP, and hit enter, and it'll show you all the ARPs in your library. Or maybe you want to find a lead or a respace, you know, so you can put in some keywords and search your library that way and then exit out of there. Okay, so what is SERUMFX? It is basically a separate plugin version of Serum that only contains the effects part of the synth, and you can add it on after any audio source, any sound really, and you're able to utilize the high quality effects that Serum provides us. Mostly, you know, used as a post-processing tool, but I will show you what this sounds like without SERUMFX. And then if we throw on some distortion and crank it up like a soft clip, really adds some intensity to it and beefs it up. So my best advice would be to not get overwhelmed with all these knobs and buttons. Just find a preset that you like, tweak it. Another pro tip would be to reverse engineer everything to really study it and how certain things are being done. Just start by turning things off and then turning things back on, and kind of understanding why that's affecting that sound.